You're listening to the Endless Party Radio Show with the Doc on Colossal Radio.
What a day. Like, I got the seventh inning stretch going on here, man, right? You know, I'm hydrating with water because I know what the weekend is going to bring. Listen, as we roll through it on this Friday, Colossal Radio coming at you out of Carbon County, Pennsylvania, right here in and around the Pocono Mountains. And for this last week and over the last couple of days, we've been promoting that this lady would be joining us on the show, and you know, it's certainly a pop culture icon, you know, and it's crazy that you know, I was watching this show, you know, watching the show Dark Shadows, right, and those many years ago, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome this lady, Sharon Lentz, or those of us that remember Dark Shadows as the young Sarah Collins. So, Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful, man. Like, this is like I said before we went on the air. Like I remember this show. Does that mean I'm like showing my age now, going, oh my God? But I really don't care.
Oh, wait a minit. I'm older than you, so watch it.
Not much. No, but really, not much. And you look way better than I do, man.
Thanks.
That's all I can tell you. So listen, it is great to have you on board with the show. First of all, welcome to Colossal Radio and Dark Shadows. How cool, right?
Well, thank you. And yes, it has been over 50 years since that show was on television, and that just blows my mind.
No, and but it was like so. I don't know. I remember watching that. I remember a cold glass of milk and Pop-Tarts. That's what I remember. Watching Dark Shadows, you know, I do. And I mean, what was the other guy's name? Barnabas
Collins, yes.
Yeah.
He was the vampire and my big brother on the show.
Yeah, how was that, having a vampire for a brother, right? For real.
Very cool.
I know. Probably has all kinds of hickey stories and stuff. I don't know. But how fun. But, you know, now, again, those of us who remember Dark Shadows, you can still find it. You can certainly now with technology, Sharon, you know, you can find things on online, and I don't know, is there anything coming back on Dark Shadows, you think? You'd never be able to remake that one, though.
Well, you know, from what I hear, it is currently running on Hulu. Mm-hmm. Now, it was on Netflix for a while, and prior to that, it was on the Decades channel, which is a nostalgia channel, but it wasn't running in its complete. You know, Dark Shadows was on air from 1966 to 1971, and there were over 1,200 episodes through many storylines. So that's a lot of show.
Yeah, it is a lot of show, man. It is. And we're on board again with Sharon Lentz, who was the young Sarah Collins. Like a ghost? Were you ever, was it a ghost? You were like little sister? What, right? No?
When I started on the show, I was a ghost, an apparition that was there to rather admonish Barnabas for his dastardly ways. You know, at first she was not even sure that she was a ghost. She was just kind of there, and things looked familiar but different, and it was kind of weird, and she was running into different people and being very skirty with the, you know, why she was there. And then when she finally came face to face with him, she kind of put him in his place, and she kind of let him know, like, I love you, but, you know, I don't like what you're doing. You need to stop.
Yeah.
And then the storyline was such that they had a seance. The people of Collinwood had a seance and went back to 1795. And then I got to be a live little girl as they told the story of her demise and how she died, why she died, that kind of thing. So I got to be a ghost and be a live little girl.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was a gothic soap opera, like a gothic soap
Absolutely.
opera, right? A gothic.
That's exactly what it was.
Right, like a gothic soap, right? And but because I never really, do I really? First of all, I don't even look like a guy, for Christ's sake, that starts every night with a salad. No good night for me starts with a salad. That's all I can tell you. And I am not a soap opera kind of guy. I mean, do I look like a General Hospital kind of dude, man? No.
No.
But darn, guys and ladies watched the gothic soap opera Dark Shadows. It was an amazing run. First of all, it was captivating. It was dark. It was at times, scary. At least when you were that age, myself back then watching it, it's like, wow. It was just. I remember that black ring. I remember the black ring. Remember the black,
the onyx ring that you wore. Yep.
Yeah, the onyx ring. I remember that. And but for you, and doing a little research on you, so it's probably that it's going to be like that moment now for Sharon. But again, Sharon Lentz, the young Sarah Collins on Dark Shadows, on board here with us right now, and your career started out like in the business as a model for Sears and Roebuck. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. I was in their Christmas catalog several times.
No kidding. How about that? And, you did runway work too. I mean, so like, how did it all start for you there? Like, parents in the business, or, mom going, I think we have a cute daughter. Let's just drag her along and see if we can use her for a paycheck. No, I'm only kidding. How did it start for you?
No, weirdest thing. My parents had no inclination to have their child be a model, be in commercials, end up on television. Not at all.
Okay.
I was born and raised in a row home in Philadelphia to older parents, and they were just hardworking, normal, not in the business kind of people. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, my mother crossed paths with a personal agent, a talent scout, more or less. And I was about 5 years old, and I was adorable. I was little and had pink tails and freckles. Uh-huh. And she said, "Did you ever think about your little girl being in commercials or on TV?" And my mom was like, "No." And she said, "Would you be interested?" And my mom just kind of, at the time, shrugged her shoulders and said, "Sure, whatever." And they exchanged phone numbers. Now, this is way before cell phones and, Googling things and whatnot. And my mom just figured nothing would come of it. Within a month's time, my mother got a phone call from this woman. "Would you be willing to take your daughter up to an audition in New York?" And my mom said yes. Go figure. And, it was kind of like a why not situation. Right. Went up to New York, and, they told us, look nice, be clean, go in, sign up. That was about all the instruction there was, which my mom did. We went up on a on a Trailways bus to New York, went to the location we were supposed to, and there was a room full of a lot of little girls. I went in, some people gave me the once-over, asked me a couple questions, and that was the end of that. Next thing I know, we get a phone call to be at another location to do this. They were going to do a photo shoot. They'd take pictures. And that's how it started, believe it or not. That haphazardly, that out of the ballpark. Like, where did that come from? Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, once you start doing something like that, you're kind of in the loop.
Yeah.
And then you get a call for a commercial. You get a call for a print ad. You get a call for a voiceover. And the same thing each time. You go up to New York, you go to an audition, there's a boatload of other little girls. It's a crapshoot, I was not particularly talented in any way. I had no experience whatsoever, except as I was going along, adding a commercial here or there, or a print ad here or there. That was about it. And I just seemed to have the look of the moment. Yeah. This was the 60s, and I had that little all-American girl look, and it worked for them.
Yeah. That's... Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying, my mom was not a stage mom or had ideas of grandeur of her little girl being anything special. But once you start doing it, and it's kind of fun, and you get a paycheck, it's not astronomical, but it's something. And, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun for my mom. It was fun for me. My dad was at home doing his work, like he had a factory job, and so it wasn't impacting the home.
Right. But you stayed at it where you did well for yourselves. What did your mom and dad think when it's like, hey, we want to throw her in this Dark Shadows a gothic show with a guy running around with like vampire teeth, giving women hickeys, biting on the neck, sleeping with women and showing a little bit of cleavage.
My.
I mean, how did that work out?
Well, I don't mean to say that my parents were naive in any way, shape, or form, but going into this, we weren't looking at that picture the way you just described it. It was it was another audition for some obscure soap opera that we had never heard of. My parents had no clue of the storylines. When somebody comes to you, well, this is back in a generation where things were a little bit more. You weren't as sarcastic, I think, as you are today, or as skeptical.
That's right.
It was, go for this audition for this soap opera. Okay, cool, we did that. And then we get a call back, and they narrowed down the number of girls, and then you get another call back, and then they say, come in for costuming, measurements, whatever, you got the job. That was, no one ever sat down and said, is there going to be a long-term psychological effect on this child for her being a ghost around bloody vampires?
Yeah, that was right. That was my next question.
Yeah, I mean, that never came up. And again, and I've said this to fans, and I think they've been a little bit disappointed when they say to me, weren't you scared? And they fail to see, until I enlighten them. I'm a 10-year-old little girl. I get to dress up in old-fashioned clothes. I get to hang out with like sets where everything's fake, tombstones. It's like Halloween. I get to see the three walls and the big open one where all the cameras are, and the guys like smoking their cigarettes and joking. I don't hear the music. I don't necessarily see the great spooky lighting. So for me, it wasn't scary. It was fun.
That's awesome.
And I think sometimes people forget because it's so real to them. When you watch Dark Shadows, it's very easy to kind of get sucked in, no pun intended, to the whole feeling of that genre. That was not what I was getting from it, though. Right. I was hanging out with a bunch of adults who I had seen smoking and drinking coffee in the morning at rehearsal, and now they just happen to have a costume on. Now, there was one scene where little Sarah is alive, and she gets caught in a mausoleum and is confronted with Jonathan, who played Barnabas Collins. And it's the first time she ever sees blood.
Oh, boy.
And the way that was done, in rehearsal, he wasn't dressed the first time at all. He was in street clothes. So we ran through. Next time we did it, he had his cape on, his Inverness cape, and his dark, makeup maybe. When it was live, which the show was done live to tape, when that actual scene was filmed, when he turned around, that was the first time, truly, Sharon Smith, the little girl, saw him with blood on his face. Yeah. So and they did this on purpose. I didn't know it, but they did this on purpose, so that my reaction to him was genuine. Mm-hmm. Maybe not fear per se, like not real fear, but there was a shock there, and that is exactly what they were going for. Yeah. And they kind of set me up for that. But at this point, I've done it, had done it enough that I knew you don't stop and say, hey, you got blood on your face. Mm-hmm. It's like a stage production. You just keep going. If a tree falls over to the left, you pretend it didn't, and you just keep saying your lines and continue the scene. So in that aspect, I guess I was professional enough to know those things. So when he turned around with blood on his face, even though I was a little taken back by it, I just went with it. So that I would think that was about the scariest thing that ever happened to me there.
So everything was pretty much then on point, and it's like you said, it's hard to believe, all these years, 50 years after its debut, which is crazy, and I think. Boy, I shouldn't be going off of memory, but I think I'm going to. And I did a little research here and brought up a few things, points that I can bring up. But I think it was set in Maine, or a seaside town in Maine. Am I right? Was that the whole concept? I think it was set in a seaside town of Maine.
Yes. The Collinsport, which doesn't really exist, was where Collinswood, the house, the home was. The estate, I guess is the right word. The footage that they show at the beginning of the show, where you see the exteriors of that really big, beautiful home, mansion, that is a real place, and it's in Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And it's called Seaview Terrace.
Gotcha.
Now, the sets were loosely based off of that, both interior and exterior. I've been in that home several times, and the first time I went in, and you go into this grand foyer and walk forward into the library. When I walked in the library, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was the set.
Wow.
And that was, they had based it off of that, but the actual sets were built in New York City, where the studio was, and the whole show was filmed there. Now, there was some filming done in Newport, Rhode Island, I believe, for the movie Night of Dark Shadows, House of Dark Shadows, neither of which I was participated in at all. So back in the day, I never got to go on location. I was in New York the whole time.
Interesting. The one thing, if I remember, and I was we brought up some fun facts, whether they're true or not, and you might know. I mean, you were young on the set, but you might know that Barnabas didn't talk too much either while he was fanged up.
Well, it was kind of hard for him to do that.
Yeah, all he would do is show his teeth.
Right.
That's
and,
it.
There are scenes, I am told, and I couldn't tell you exactly where they are, but there are scenes where he has dialogue, and then he kind of slyly turns away and sticks them in, and then comes back to do his big bite.
Yeah.
And, that has a lot to do with camera work.
Right.
They focus on different things, not to bring attention to what he's doing. But, yeah, he couldn't do his dialogue with his teeth in. They weren't that good back then.
Yeah, right. No, how things have changed. You've seen so much. And not too long ago, I don't know if you've seen it, Dark Shadows, starring Johnny Depp and Michelle Pfeiffer. What do you think? Did they call you? Did they call you for the showing? Did they at least give you free tickets, these people?
Oh, heavens, no.
Oh, my God. They are such asses.
I have to say, I won't comment on that. I like to be politically correct.
Yeah, well, I'm not. They should have.
I have a very large audience.
I know you do, but I'm throwing it out there. My God, the girl that was on there, Sarah Collins, right there, playing it right from the get-go. You think they could have come up with a couple of free tickets for you and your family, whatever. But anyway, what about that?
They did have a cameo with some of the other actors, though.
Oh, cool.
Jonathan Frid, who played Barnabas Collins in the original, did a cameo, along with David Selby, who had been Quentin, Laura Parker, who had been Angelique, and Catherine Lee Scott, who had been Josette or Maggie. Yeah. They did fly them out there, and they did a cameo. It was a party scene, and they come in the front door as guests, whatever. That's awesome. It was. If you sneezed, you missed it.
No.
But it was nice that they gave that nod to the original.
No, you're right, because this was done such on a limited. A lot of them were back then. So, well, I shouldn't say that a lot of them, but this one was done on such a limited budget. But yet the effects that it had. And the fan base. That it had was unbelievable. And it started with teenagers. Like, teenagers were so engrossed in Dark Shadows. It was unbelievable, right?
Well, there was nothing like it at the time. This was not, as you had said before, this was not your mother's soap opera.
That's right.
This was in the middle of the day. This was completely different. Kids found it by accident. You know, all of a sudden on their screen they have, like, you know, these strange paranormal kind of things, and they're like, whoa, wait, this is cool. And even more so for those kids whose parents said, you're not allowed to watch that, that's the devil and all that stuff. That just made them want to watch it more.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. That's right.
And I have heard numerous stories over the years that have just done my heart good. This television show, people who aren't involved or don't know anything about it would never believe the impact that this show has had on so many people in so many different ways. It was so much more than just a television show. It hit at a maybe just the right time in our timeline of the world, as well as hitting kids at that age where they're coming home from school. You know, they got an hour before dinner or before somebody starts yelling at them to do homework. And they sit down and they lose themselves in this craziness. And there are storylines throughout that are pretty crazy. And they just absorbed it, and it gave them answers to questions they didn't even know to ask yet. Kids that were being bullied, kids that felt different, kids that were what we used to call latchkey kids, home alone. It gave them something. And I never would have believed it. Like, many, many years went by after Dark Shadows, and I really had no connection to it whatsoever. And it wasn't until I was invited to come to some social gatherings where it was all Dark Shadows fans. Again, before cell phones and computers and all that, where we actually used to get together. And I started to hear these personal stories from people. And at first I thought, okay, this is a handful of unique individuals who maybe were fringe in their community that really latched onto this show. But over the years, and with the blessing, to me anyway, of internet and Facebook and email, that audience, that fan base, as you say, has blossomed for me into this huge community of these people. This is where I hear all these various stories. All age brackets. I have people tell me they were 5 years old when they were watching them. I'm like, what?
It's crazy. No,
I used to sit with my grandmom and watch this show.
No,
you know?
I remember. I do with my older brother and older sister, and I do, and. It's great to, like you said, now with with the world we live in, to have that connection and the impact that the show had. Again, it's Sharon Lentz on board here with us, the young Sarah Collins on Dark Shadows, the Gothic soap opera back in the day. Man, it was it's such a, I don't know, It put that much of an impression on me that every once in a while when I'm sitting here at my radio studio, I have to put in fangs like Barnabas. That's what I do. That's kind of the fun. And then the only thing I got to do is I got to pay women to come into the studio so I can suck and bite on their neck. You know what I mean?
My goodness.
That's what I have to. That's what I have to do. I gotta bring them. I gotta pay them to come in just so I can suck and bite on their neck. That's it. And but
be careful you don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yes. That's hilarious. So now, what does Sharon Lentz do now? I know you got into a whole lot of you continue to produce things, you do different things, right?
Well, not so much in production. That's a Facebook fallacy. I have been involved in independent film industry, wearing many, many hats, from being in front of the camera to behind the camera to taking out the trash, just because I really like being involved with that community. That community being, independent filmmakers, photographers, writers, directors, actors, especially, and I'm not limiting myself, but especially young people, that they're doing this completely out of the love for film, for telling a story.
That's great.
Not the hardcore New York, it's all about the buck and the formula that works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little put off by that, and that's just me personally.
Right.
I mean,
I hear you.
The creativity and the out-of-the-box thinking that comes with youth.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very attracted to that. It's like, I encourage that.
Listen,
oh, my God, you're genius.
I hear a lot. I mean, even when I had Martha Davis on from the Motels and everything else, I mean, and a few other guests from your point of view, from whether it be music and or film or a combination of both, are all on that same page together where, so many of you, where it's right now all about how much money can we make with this instead of how right can we do by doing this and making it right. I mean, they're on the
exactly.
They're on the same page as you and I. So kudos to you for sticking to your guns. So do we have family? Do we have do we have kids at all?
Oh my, yes. Family is paramount to me, as anybody who knows me will tell you. It's my number one.
You can tell.
Anything for my family.
Yeah, you can tell.
So when there's conventions and my family needs me, guess what? I'm with my family.
Yeah, good
but
for
yes,
you.
I'm married to the same man. I've been with him for 37 years. Oh.
37 years. Holy crap.
I don't know how he puts up with me.
that lasted longer than all three of mine. True story. But anyway,
I
that's
have
great.
3 children. I have a stepdaughter from his first marriage. I have 2 children of my own. They're 20-somethings now. And, a lot had to do with my disappearing for years because I was all about family.
Right.
And then when the children start to get to a place where they don't really need me anymore, like they do, but they don't,
right.
It's time for mom to turn her attention to something that I can add to the community, something that I can give. And that's how I started back in the independent film industry, and I have a lot of outside interests. I'm real big in the recovery world with at-risk women, and I'm involved in... I'm always down for the what's the term? The underdog is.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, no, that's cool.
I feel like a woman of, and I don't mean to sound pompous when I say this, but I've been told this by some young people. I'm like a woman of privilege, and I don't mean that in that I'm rich. It's that I'm white and I'm over 50.
Right. That's hilarious. But I understand.
And I feel a responsibility to use that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So I try to involve myself in diversity groups and peace groups and organizations that support equal rights and civil rights and social rights, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very busy doing that as well. But
that's great.
On the fun side, I love going to these nostalgia conventions. And I said to somebody recently, it was actually a booking agent, and I said, as long as there are people out there that want to talk to me, that want to hear my stories, and I'm still viable, I guess is the right word, I will do it. Because it's fun, and I love people, and I love talking to people and meeting people and hearing their stories.
Yeah.
Now, the moment that I become that woman sitting at that table that no one has a clue who she is and who does she think she is, I'm done.
Yeah. I don't want
to be that person.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I really don't. It was amazing. You could tell you're very humble, and very much on point with family. I mean, you can just tell even just by your tone and the vibes you give off. Even when we talked for 40 seconds before we went on the air, like I can tell. I don't know much. After 35 years, I do know a little. I think I'm actually pretty smart. Anybody who was able to smoke and drink for a living and play music and get paid for it, that's smart. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Doyle,
honestly.
wouldn't you think that's smart? That's smart. I mean, for real, that's smart. But I really mean that. It's been a pleasure. We could go on and on. I think you need to write a book.
You know, that has been approached several times, and
I'll be your ghostwriter.
Yeah, that's a very expensive job. I've looked into it, and I just can't afford to do that.
I'll do it for half the price or even less.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. I will. I'll do it cheap. I would like. Could you imagine?
Heaven knows I have the material.
I'll bet.
I sometimes start, and then I think to myself, oh, how vain. Nobody cares what you have to say.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. It's been, you could go on and on with these interviews, and you guys got to, you can find her on Facebook. You can do a search on Dark Shadows. Sharon Lentz on board here with us for the last little bit, and the young Sarah Collins on Dark Shadows, and the Gothic soap opera, man, back in the day, like it was crazy. Is that Barnabas, Mr. Frid? Is he still alive, or anybody, or
he passed away in 2012.
Okay.
I was with him a few months before at a dinner at a banquet.
Wow.
And he was still commanding an audience and still very much the actor. He was wonderful.
Yeah,
he was wonderful.
Yeah,
a lot of respect for the man.
I have that for you as well. So humbling, so grateful to be able to talk to you for the last little bit, and stay in touch. I know my PR people will stay in touch with you directly if something's coming up. You can reach out to them, and we'll we'd be more than happy to have you back on the show.
Hey, you're not that far from me. You should invite me into the studio.
Where are you?
I'm only about an hour and change away from you. I'm in Bucks County.
Are you down towards Philly? Really?
Yeah.
All right. As long as you didn't say from New Jersey, because I don't allow anybody from New Jersey in this freaking studio. I don't know. Something happens to people when they come in from Jersey. Like, Jersey's not right.
No comment. I have friends in Jersey.
No, I'm only kidding. But you know what? Why don't we reach out to Dave, and let's set something up, and we'll have you in the studio. That would be absolutely phenomenal. That would be great.
That would be way cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you've got props or old things that you do have, maybe studio set stuff, anything you can bring in, pictures, that would be really cool to do. Reach out to Dave, and let's schedule something to have you in on the show. That would be great.
You got it.
All right, listen, all the best to you. Have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend, and we'll catch up real soon.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me on.
It was awesome, man, and we look forward to having you in the studio, all right?
See you on Facebook.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks, Sharon.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Lehighton, Palmerton, Gemthorpe, and nationwide. It's Colossal Radio. Find us online at colossalradio.rocks.